Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. I'm excited. This is fun. This is good. The person I'm going to introduce you to, I've known him for a long time. We've swapped emails, messages, phone calls. He is big in the Pardot community. He is a 4-time certified Pardot consultant, and he's an admin. He's a trainer to the stars, 2020 Salesforce Marketing Champion, part of our Marketing Champion series. And he's also, I'll have you know, the coach of the Ninja Laser Eagles T-ball team, which we will
most important.
Yes. And then following that, founder,
is all the other stuff.
Salesforce consultant, trainer, Cypress Learning Systems. Brandon Walton, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Casey. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good, man. It's good to link this thing up. We actually been chatting for a couple minutes already about soccer and about kids, and you got some great artwork behind you on there for those that want to check out the video.
Best papa ever.
Best papa ever. You know, maybe that's the name of this episode.
You could take creative freedom, creative liberty on that if you'd like. Absolutely.
Okay. Good. And we'll make that the logo of the. Yeah, perfect. Right? No, that's cool, man. Well, I'm excited to have you here. Right? Like, there's so many things to talk about. We're both working in the email marketing. We're working in marketing automation. We're helping people learn this stuff, and so we're going to be able to smash some things together. Talk about some good stuff. Email deliverability. Right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talk about designing it or what should be on it, but you got to get that message through, man. So I can't wait to get chatting with you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass you this thing. It's really kind of heavy though. All right, here it is.
All right.
You got it?
All right. It's a
Thor's
big
hammer. Go ahead, grab that
Thor's
thing.
hammer. Okay. I think I'm worthy. All right. Got it.
You got it? Okay. Take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Just set the record straight once and for all.
Sure. I mean, we could talk a ton about email deliverability, Casey. I would say the number one thing, I don't know, myth maybe doesn't qualify as a myth, but I would say that the biggest pet peeve, and you touched on a little bit, is going berserk on email design. I would say in my years of doing this, I think I've been doing this for over 10 years before we both do Pardot, but before Pardot.
You're aging yourself here. You're dating yourself.
Ooh. But, you know, I have never seen an email not convert because someone used Helvetica over Arial or some downloaded premium Adobe font. And in this space, that comes up so often where you get in these large ongoing engagements where they're like, oh, well, we need this specific font and we need all these images. And I think the biggest myth for all the email designers that are out there is HTML5 type stuff inside of emails. One, it's not going to help with converting things any better from anything that I've seen. Maybe you've seen different, but anything that I've seen. Secondly, it actually hurts email deliverability, not only because the more code and external style sheets and scripts that you're looking to reference, not only is that more risky for just getting sent to the inbox, but in addition, when you are dealing with folks that have different email clients from Thunderbird to Outlook to old Outlook to Gmail to Apple Mail to whatever else is out there, all of the crazy design requirements of, oh, I've got this shooting star that needs to go right behind these mountains and there need to be different elements.
With sparkles.
With sparkles coming out of the back of it. And you're like, all right, well, great. One, I have never seen in my years of doing this, an email like that convert more than an email that just says, hi, Casey, how are you? It looks like we are reaching out to you because of this. Click here to learn more. You click that button, do all your crazy website stuff. That is, I would say, my biggest pet peeve, and I'm feeling myself getting excited over because I'm thinking of all these crazy design projects that come in where it's just very over-the-top design, and they want to push that into email. So I think that the number one thing is emails have to be these crazy designed, built-out things. Simpler is better. Simpler is better. I
Simpler is
think that's
better.
going to be the first myth that I would like to throw out there. And hopefully there's lots of designers and lots of marketing managers who maybe are spending tons of money on email design and spending a ton of time on email templates. Keep it simple.
Keep it
Keep it
simple.
simple.
It's amazing how we can overcomplicate things. What kind of goofy requests have you had?
I would say a lot of it is, so when you have designers, and great designers, mind you,
Yeah.
they're really building for, we live in this world of, responsive HTML, bootstrap everything. And so it's like, we're going to
Right.
build this background image where there's different elements in the background image. We want to have these layered in different ways. That goes out the window when you're moving things over to email. And then even in addition to that, and I would say probably more importantly, when you're dealing with like an email builder, so drag and drop email builders obviously are super popular. If you look at them, they're all built around, let's set things up in very much like you're building a website in the year 2000. You're building your MySpace page, right? Like table, row. So I think that's where people can get in hot water, where as a consultant or consulting, when you're building something out for a client and they have this expectation of, okay, well, we want to be able to swap this background image. We want to make it interface with this front image here. You might make it work well in like your rendering tool. Like if you're using something like Pardot, we got it working in there, and it might work great in Gmail. There's just so many other devices and form factors and stuff to take into consideration that that's the number one project that always gets blown out of proportion very quickly, in my experience, for very little return on the investment. If you're spending money on something that's going to ramp up a sale or get more engagement, that's one thing. Because with Outlook too, here's the thing that you tell people. A lot of these platforms, they have to approve the images anyway. So you have this great image type thing, and it just comes in a bunch of X's in half of the emails that it goes out anyway. So that's a fun one.
That's a big deal, right? Because you could spend a lot of cycles making the prettiest email ever, and it could be just amazing. It could be glittery, but no one sees it. Maybe, especially if you're new to them.
If you're new to them, absolutely. So they have to approve images from this sender. And if you're looking at the email marketing space, it's very different. Now, we could talk about like system alerts from known senders, and that's a whole different category of emails. We're not going to talk about that too much. Even then, they have to know who the sender. They have, like your system update emails type stuff, which for this conversation, we'll categorize that as a different category of email communication and not marketing communication.
Yeah, the operational type email.
Operational alerts type things. But yeah, for marketing emails, I've just found simpler is better. Have your CTA in there, very clear. Really no need to spend a ton of time and resources on getting it built out. But you can make it look good. There's things that you can do to make your emails look good. Add some background color, add some text, add some cool buttons, are you in the school of GIF or GIF?
That's a great debate, man. Maybe we should just spend the rest of the podcast just discussing this. I say GIF.
Yeah, I say GIF too.
Okay.
I say GIF too, but I hear it like, GIF.
Yeah, but there's a peanut butter named GIF. And they don't spell it that way, do they?
Yep.
It's a J, right?
It's a G, J and G. But
Jiffy Lube, right? Jiffy Lube.
Yep.
It's not. It'd be Giffy Lube if they spelled it the other way.
Yeah. So I mean, tomato is how I've always approached it. I know what someone's saying if they're referring to it. I say GIF. I might, if I'm talking to somebody who's saying GIF over and over, I might say GIF.
What you should do is just stop the conversation and correct them immediately. Tell them, no, there are some absolute truths in this world. Maybe not around morality, but for sure, you cannot call it a GIF. I will end this call right now. Well, I'm kidding. Kind of, but not really. I don't know.
Fire the client. Hold on. You called it what? Sorry, we're done.
Well, you could say the same thing about Pardot, right? You could say,
the hard
Pardos.
Yeah. Well,
I've had some clients in France, and they don't even say it that way. Like, come on. These renegade French Canadians. If you're listening to this, it is Pardot.
Pardot with the hard T. And I know you've done a lot around that too, and you dress up like your cowboy and you bang, it's the Pardot with the hard T.
Brandon.
I love it.
You mean when I wear my actual daily
when you
clothes.
when you show your true self,
My
when you
true
show
self,
when
you know?
when the true cowboy comes out, and you are in your natural state as cowboy, correcting people on the hard T,
That's it.
and the gifs and the gifs and the hard T. Yeah.
But that's a good point. I mean, we call things differently, and I do want to come back to the whole make them good, but there's a bunch of things I'd love to just sort of unpack here. One is that the concept of you have the designer that's kind of separated out from the whole email process. And
Right.
this is, this is the same trouble you get into when you have marketing disconnected from sales. If you've got somebody and they're not really a part of the overall process, and let me just send you a Photoshop, let me just send you a
Right.
PDF of the design you should use. It's
Yep.
like, there's more to email than that. You can't just do that. But tell me about, what did HTML5 do in this situation? It sounds like it opened up Pandora's box and it gave people all these more capabilities.
Mhm.
And it sounds like a distraction. We just shouldn't use them. But like, what are the different things that people are like, oh, you mentioned layers. What else is there from all this?
Yeah, so HTML5 is part of just browsers, and when we talk about browsers, we're talking about Chrome, what used to be Internet Explorer, now Edge, Mozilla, Firefox. We're talking about the browsers that when you go to CheshireImpact.com, that renders a certain way. So
Right.
HTML5 is just modern browsers, and they're able to read things in cooler ways more than they were able to back in the year 2000, where
Right.
you couldn't pass like some HTML5 specific code that's calling out, all right, this is a video, and so now you render this as a style of a special video. Or particularly, I think where I have a very emotional thing is like the idea of layered backgrounds, which in like HTML5 you can do really cool things. You have these CSS elements, and you have this Z index, where this is a Z index of 1, this is a Z index of -1. So mountains are going to show up behind the
I
picture
love
of
that.
Castro
Yeah.
or the case or Casey, hiking or whatever. And so you got these separate
Yeah.
elements that can engage with each other in different ways, and it's done light, so you don't have to render this like flash thing on the back end. So there's really cool things in HTML5 that allows pages to load faster and load quicker. But now you take that away and you go back into this email client space, which is for a lot of people some program that they've downloaded on their computer. Maybe it's Outlook 2007 that they're still running on, because you know what? I know Outlook '07 and this is what I run, and it's supported by Microsoft, and this is what I use. Well, that's not going to have any HTML5 stuff. So this beautiful
No.
email that you have, that you've spent, you know, you've billed 200 hours against this project, making sure that this mountain lines up behind this shooting
Right.
star or something like that. Well, this person in 2007 is looking at like an email that has a picture of a star somewhere up top and then some picture of a cloud down below, and everything's just all jumbled up because it's not designed to do that.
Right.
But what you can do is have a little button on that email, very clear email, like, hey, Casey, we're sending you this because you're awesome and you did this thing. Check this out to learn more, and then go nuts on the webpage. Go nuts on the landing.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, when you click here, we're going to show you some layered shooting stars. We're not going
Yeah,
to show it to you on your email,
yeah.
because you're right. The worst thing could happen. You could get people, the images aren't showing, but there's all these boxes taking up spaces anyways. And
Mm-hmm.
now you've got all these boxes, and people don't even see text, and they're like, oh my gosh, what goofy spammer from Bulgaria? Sorry, Bulgaria,
I
sent this
love
email,
Bulgarians. I
right?
love Bulgaria. I've got a lot of Bulgarian friends. Shout out
Do you
to all my
really?
Bulgarian friends. Yeah, yeah.
Do you really? Have you been there?
I haven't been there. I haven't been there. I've always been too poor to make that kind of a travel. But
Yeah,
I worked at Microsoft for a long time, very heavy on the vendor space, and
got it.
a lot of
Yeah.
Bulgarian friends there.
Well, shoot. Weird ideas come out of nowhere. We should have a Pardot user group in Bulgaria. We should both go there and
There
present.
might be one already. I think there is one, but yeah, we should present to them. I'd be up for that.
Seriously. Well, we went off on tangent with HTML5, but I want to take us back to how. Oh, actually, I had a quick story for you. You mentioned different clients, because even if you design it and you get into the system, you get into Pardot, whatever you're sending with, the receiving client may be one of many. And you mentioned a bunch. Like we've got, on the browser side, you get Chrome, Edge, Mozilla, Firefox. There's so many email clients. And one time, I wonder if you have any of these stories like this too. We had someone ask for some email wizardry, and we could make the email look exactly the way it should, make it look beautiful in all platforms except for Goldmine, or make it look good in Goldmine and terrible in all the other platforms, right?
Exactly.
And unfortunately, they made the choice to make it good look good in Goldmine because their executive leaders all received email in Goldmine. That's a warning sign right there. You probably don't want to sign up for a company. Hey, there's this thing called Salesforce, people. But those aren't the choices you want to make. Like a text email would have been perfectly fine, which is you just said, save your magic for elsewhere.
Yep, absolutely. And so, I mean, in that kind of a case, what are your other options? Is okay, let's collect, if possible, let's collect some information on the email client that people are using. There's probably tricky ways that you can potentially do that. And then you have, here's your Goldmine version. What I would probably do, all right, executive leadership, we're going to send them a Goldmine.
Just send them a test email, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Look at how great this is. Because that's, and I mean, you've got the analytics to see, okay, how many people are viewing in Outlook versus this, and build towards that, right? If your high converting customers are looking at your stuff inside of Apple Mail, maybe just focus on Apple Mail and figure out your list to where it's like, all right, let's double down on this Apple Mail thing. And you should be able to track that. You have the analytics. If you're using any tool that's worth its monthly fees, is going to show you some kind of analytics around that, who's opening it. And then that, the reason why you're spending money on an automation platform that gives you those analytics is so you know what to focus on. And if you do have to have it, there's no way around it. That gives you a better option, if anything.
Right. Save that magic for later.
Save the magic.
And I guess one of the
I think that's the theme of when you're an older athlete, you get that too, right? You're like, I'm playing rugby, I'm playing soccer. We're going to be out here for 45-minute halves. All right, I'm going to save my magic for about 44 minutes into this first half, and then I'm going to score a goal. I'm just going to be warming up.
Because what happens if you use your magic the first 5 minutes, right?
Well, a younger version of myself had way more magic in that regard, and I could make the magic go for a full 90-minute match. But now it's like save the juice. And when you're talking about money, when you're talking about someone else's money, who's spending money on a consult, one of the things you got to do due diligence as a consultant is say, look, let's save your magic. Let's save your money. If we spend, $20,000, $30,000 on this email template, if that's what it's going to roll into after all these iterations.
That's a pretty pricey email template, my friend.
I've been in organization, I'd say the most expensive, and this is funny, newsletter email. And I was on a big team at the time. $1 million email, $1 million email. Good times.
Have you asked them if they need some consulting lately? Because that sounds like a great.
Oh yeah, they're still a client. They love me. I mean, and that was a big one. That was a big one. I mean, it's in a lot of different languages, right? There was a lot of stuff that went into it, but $1 million email template. Think of that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
they just get big. They get big with the back and forth, with the redesigns, with and in this case, we were dealing with a lot of different languages, and there was a lot of complexities to it. It was on a very large team. I was one of many on that team. So, I mean, if it was all me, I probably wouldn't be in this kind. I'd be sitting on in a beach somewhere with a $1 million home at least. But
at least. Well, man, sometimes what I've seen happen is you test that against like a text email, and sometimes people are like, oh, is a text going to do better? Maybe not, but what if it's the same? What if your text email tests the exact same conversion rate as your graphical email? Well, then maybe you can save yourself the heartache of this whole design process, and maybe it would have been better served just having a plain text email that's a little more personal than it's, salesy and corporate and graphic-y.
And so often, and this, you do emails like this too, there is a difference. There is we're going to invite you to a webinar, and maybe that's a little bit more graphical and more of an invitation-based thing.
Yeah.
When we're talking about sales and that sales and marketing alignment, I think I have found over time that the emails that convert the best, if you're really looking to drive sales, it's an automated email. Hey, Casey, just checking in on you. Did you see this link? Or, hey, Casey, just wanted to get some time on our calendar. Does it do any of these times? Something like that where you're not, there's no shooting stars behind mountains and stars popping out in your appy and in a button that sits perfectly in the middle between these two peaks of the mountain. Right? So the purpose, defining the purpose is very important. Oftentimes, to go back to the myth that we're looking to bust here is, do you need to spend a lot of time, money, energy, effort on email design? And I think there's a lot of money that gets wasted in that space.
you can use for a lot of better things, better content for your buyers, and or just send them a gift card. I could have designed this email, but instead I decided to send you a gift card. Here you go.
Wouldn't that go so far? Wouldn't that go so far for the?
Seriously, especially the $1 million one. Hey, instead of designing this email newsletter, we're just going to say, screw the newsletter. We're going to send you an iPad. Does that work for you?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to send what would, yeah. Math, and I'm not. Yeah.
Well,
We're going to We're going to go away 100,000 iPads or something like that. Whatever.
Yeah. You still save some money
Yeah.
on top of the whole thing. Yeah. Well, I think sometimes we get away from the intent of it. I love that you said, really put some focus on defining the purpose of what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to impress people? And that's where we get in trouble marketing, being the whole pretty design shop, the print shop for sales, we just make pretty graphics and trade show booths. Like, no, there's a goal here. We're trying to help sales grow a pipeline. Like, let's go, people.
Yep.
Pretty, make it pretty enough, and then let's go.
Pretty clear, concise messaging. If you're going to invest time, dollars anywhere, put it in the data. Make sure that the data is good. Make sure that you have the right tokens, merge fields, whatever the platform that you're using calls it, so you can deliver with a higher level of confidence that Casey's going to receive this email that's relevant to Casey, that has all of Casey's right information in there. And it could be text email, or it could be one of your standard templates, like a basic template in Pardot, or whatever you're using, that just you adjust the content, you add your merge fields, pop a button in there, send, and go. Yeah.
Yes. Strip out all the extra. I think that sometimes that design, to your myth, they can be distractions, maybe it's because it's a known thing. Like, well, I know I can make this look good, and I don't know how it's going to perform. I get it, but like, just because it's known, like, you can't control everything, but the thing that you can't control is the thing you really want to make changes on. Like, okay, make it look professional, but now really spend the brain cycles on, to your point, delivering the right message at the right time, and not being distracted by the bells and whistles and the shiny shooting stars and the layered graphics.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen is that goes a lot farther. It goes a lot farther just in conversion, ROI,
everything. All the things, man.
All the things that are important for email marketing. I think that, like, pretty design would be at least towards the bottom of the list.
Okay, if you had a list of like 5 things, then what would you put in there?
5 lists for high
like
converting.
The 5 things you like, the priorities of thinking about your email you're going to send out. Maybe we put graphics at 5, or like whatever you want to do, but like, what would be the things that come above that?
Yeah, I mean, number one, and not to say, I mean, if it's cliche for a reason, but it's data, right? Making sure that the data is right. And so if we're going to put that in a bucket, it's going to be making sure that, if you're sending something out to people with a certain job title, that you got the right job title. If you're using a tool like Pardot, if you're building a list, make sure that you've got the information that's building the lists out correctly. So number one is data, because you don't want to send an email, regardless of what it looks like, to somebody who's like, why am I getting this? Like, unsubscribe. Data would be number one. Number 2 would be timing, and there's lots of studies around timing. We know the old, like, oh, well, you should be sending emails on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. What happens with that? Now, every marketer on the planet is sending their emails on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 and 9 o'clock. And so in this space, I'm sure your email is the same. We probably have multiple inboxes like I do. And then it's like on clockwork, Tuesday, just, you know what I do? Mark as read, onto my next. So
select all, delete, maybe.
Select all, delete. And talking about email deliverability, people who are using Gmail and Outlook, they're tracking that information, right? Like how often your stuff gets deleted. And that's an issue, because if your emails are constantly getting deleted or marked as spam or moved to this spam inbox, what's that doing for your domain reputation? Even though people aren't going to Pardot and they're saying, hey, this is spam, and you're getting that spam complaint, you look at it, you're like, oh man, I got an email open, or hey, look, the deliverability is good, it didn't bounce. But silently, someone's sending it to some promotional inbox inside of Gmail that disappears, and you're sitting there as a marketer like, oh man, things aren't bouncing, we're kicking butt. But you know what? Nope, they're going to the quarantine folder. Those emails are getting socially distant from your buyer.
Right. It makes every email important. Oh, you're just going to
Yeah.
fill their inbox, and Google is thinking about that stuff for us. I mean, that's what I like about it in the first place. I get my biz email and my personal email through there because I know it filters the hell out of it. And yeah, I've got the 5 different inboxes, and but slowly over time, it's deciding, okay, this is garbage. It snuck through once, not twice, not a third time. Now you're lower and lower and lower until eventually, you know, there's actually a spam folder in Gmail. It's so funny.
Yeah.
You go check it out and you go, oh, these are the worst of the worst. These are
and there's always like thousands of them in there, right? And you're like, oh, I haven't checked this all month, and you're like, did I miss anything from some? Because and this is why email deliverability is super important. I've had it with not client, but people who are going to be potential clients, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't hear back from that person for a while, and then you go back and it's like their email got sent to your spam, the spam.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, there's some issues going on there. Now I see why they're looking at moving their platform. And if it's a domain issue, I mean, switching from one platform to another isn't going to fix a domain issue. It could fix an IP issue and other things. So then it becomes this whole other thing of, all right, let's get a new domain. Let's change up this. Let's change up that, because the timing, right? And so I'd say, so if just so we can get to 5 points, otherwise we'll start getting to subpoints. I would say timing and also cadence. So maybe there's a tie between timing and cadence.
Are they separate to you?
Let's keep them separate. I would say second and third, but maybe it's like a tie. And I know that you've probably had clients like this as well, where we want to send an email in the morning and an email in the afternoon, and we want to hit these guys until, oh, they completed this form, they're interested, they're hot. Let's email these guys more and more and more and more and more because they're hot. We're going to email them until they buy. So cadence is also super important. So the strategy behind cadence, I think, is also very important, because we have the ability to send things out at meaningful times. So timing and cadence are kind of timed together off of a trigger. Your dynamic list opportunity stage is this for this contact. Let's put them on this nurture program or an engagement studio because they're here, but being very careful about that cadence. So when someone's hot, you're not just emailing them more and more and more and more and more, but you're emailing them something relevant, and you're reaching out when something changes or when something relevant happens, because we've got the ability to do that today. We've got the ability to listen to that information and use those triggers for when those emails go out. And it's not just the old days of spray and pray of, hey man, I just updated this Windows server and we can send out 1 million emails right now. So let's load it up with emails and see what happens.
Well, yeah, let's just shoot these puppies out and see where they land. Yeah, like shotgun yeah, man, machine gun approach. You know what's funny? You got me thinking when you were talking about that, the timing, but also the cadence, and almost like being too eager. It's almost like, you know, a date or something, or
I love the date analogy with email.
You're swapping messages, and then someone, like, they're not totally interested, but they're like, hi, you know, how's it going? I'm looking back at your response. And you're like, oh my God, she looked at me.
and that's what, so
Brandon,
we know that.
I think she wants to get married, dude. I'm going to send her.
This is the one.
I'm going to keep texting her. And then she's like, you're like, how you doing? She's like, pretty good. And you're like, yeah, me too. You know, I was thinking about you the other week, and you're like, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, okay, weird. or what's
worse, here's the one that you've also seen. People have gotten a lot better with it now, but in the early days of people adopting the marketing automation where they're like, oh, we could do this now. Hey, I saw you open my email. Hey, I saw you clicked on my link. It's kind of the same thing. Hey, I saw the text message went to red. Hey, are you reading it now? Are you there right now? And that's it. So going into cadence, that's another big mistake that people make, is like, someone sees interest. Oh man, she liked my picture on. She gave me a double tap on Instagram. Let me slide into her DMs real quick.
Right.
You know, doesn't really work out in dating, although I'm far removed from the dating scene. But it doesn't.
You never know, right? 2020 could work now. You never know.
Maybe. We won't go into Tinder. I got friends in that space who their Tinder strategy is swipe, 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 and apparently that's a thing. I mean, the point is
cool though. You know, to your point,
right?
You got to play cool. You know, the prospect is okay. Well, show me what you got here, and you're like, well, here's something you might find really helpful.
Yes.
Let it simmer.
Let it marinate.
You know? Did you get that? Did you get my email? That's what my spam box shows. Yeah. Hey, just following up on my earlier message. Did you see my previous email? Yeah. I reported that one for spam too, bro. Like,
yep, exactly.
Seriously.
You got to be smooth.
Right. Okay. Smooth email. Brendan Walton.
Smooth operator.
Man. Yep. There it is. Smooth marketing ops.
Ooh,
Smops.
yeah, might be time for a rebrand.
Right. Hey, time for a rebrand. Well, dude. Okay. So we got
Smooth
data.
email marketing with Casey Cheshire.
Okay. You're now the host. I'll be the guest. You keep talking. What's number 4, you think?
So what do we have right now? I am not taking notes right now.
I got data, timing.
Data, timing.
You want a little
Cadence.
co-captain here with Cadence.
Yep. And number 5 we say is like
What's
graphics
4?
and design. 4 is going to be.
Maybe there isn't. Maybe we'll just put design in 4.
But you know, I guess if we're going to put anything, I guess it would just be the. Well, see, now it's getting all jumbled. This is my problem with lists, right? Because like lists are more bullet point. They're all important. But I'd say 4 would be, and we're tying 4 and 5 together, and maybe 4 is graphics and 5 is the other one. But I think it's important. That is just technical setup, right? If we're talking about this, if this is the email deliverability list, or the important thing of email, just making sure that you're set up the right way. Make sure that you've got I would say SPF, domain key stuff.
Oh yeah.
If the tool you're using has the DMARC and all that good stuff, just making sure that's set up. Because then, I mean, the issue there is you have, if you're on Google, you have that big thing like this email might not come from who it says it's from, or it's like a lot of little trailing, like this is sent on behalf of da 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 da, or it just goes straight to that box.
Seriously.
So yeah,
nothing helps your conversions out like having an official warning from Google on the top of your email saying that this could be a hacker.
This is a hacker. Yeah, exactly. Kind of like with your SSL certificates are also like one of those, like, oh, I got to renew the SSL certificate.
Right.
Otherwise, Google's like, this site is not trusted. Yeah.
Don't click here. It's not trusted.
Don't click here. And that's basically what those banners say. And it's just, you know, if you're not set up the right way, then. So a technical setup. See, and here's my problem with lists, Casey, is now I'm like reevaluating the whole list. Should that be number 1? A lot of, you know, we could have this. We could go down this whole list again and recategorize it all. But I would say towards the bottom of that list, every single time, consistently, is going to be like the graphical design of your email.
Right.
I'm a very binary person, very a Boolean person. So it'd be like yes or no, right? Like the list kind of blurs things out. But if you were to say, is this important? Yes or no? I would say yes on all of those. And then if you said graphic design, I would probably check no on that box, because you can do a lot with text email messaging. For
sure. My most successful emails are all text. I mean, show me one that performs better that isn't a personal note from Casey Cheshire or Brendan Walton.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, people care far more about Casey Cheshire than they do Brandon Walton, but the same idea.
No,
You're the man, Casey. You're the man. You are. You know, I wanted to say this to you. Now we're recording, so I'll say it to you. Like you are an inspiration.
Gonna turn red now.
You have created this monster, right? Like a big part of like my passion about this is like watching you. So I tip my hat to you, sir.
Thanks, man. One. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you.
I just love what I do, you know, and I think that's important.
So
you just keep, you know, anybody can do that. Just love what you do, and you don't even notice what happens after that. But it's neat to think about just some of the years that have gone by where we're doing this, and a lot of people have improved their game, but there's so many more people out there to help. I know that's why you got into it as well, just to help people step their marketing up, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's fun and you like it. And even when was it, I think this might have been a blog post from you from a long time ago, and it's always like, and you were talking about like embrace the suck. It was a Marine thing about embrace it. I think it's like I think you probably go back to like 2013 blog. I'm pretty sure it was from you. And you know, like I remember reading it way back then, like 7 years ago. Now I'm like, you know what? Embrace the suck. Because some days, I live in Seattle. A lot of people using Pardot, especially back then when Pardot was this Atlanta thing. Everybody was on the East Coast. So it was like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Not 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Oh, I'm waking up and getting coffee and I'm going to go on a jog. It's like, nope, there's someone drilling me on a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And I remember reading, I was like, you know what? Embrace the suck, because this is going to pay off in 2020 when I have 2 kids. And no, but you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like you can't run away from challenge. it's usually better to head it on, because if you run away, it just gets bigger, or
Bigger and
you
bigger.
just get weaker from it. So you just gotta. I mean, I don't like drama like the rest of everyone, but sometimes you just gotta go forward and
Hit it
hit
in
it.
the mouth.
Yeah, yeah. I've got some people on my team who are just really good at that. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I would have said that, but it worked really well. Like, I'm glad you did that. You didn't like shy away from the elephant in the room. Like, you shouldn't send that email. You
And I
should
would say the
don't
reason
do
why
it.
you're successful is because you've got a team of people who don't shy away from that message. That
Yeah,
is so important. And when you're building that team, right, finding those people who are like, are you a go-getter? Are you somebody who wants to solve a problem? Are you the type of person that when there's adversity, when there's challenges, when there's someone who's questioning you, you're not like,
yeah.
well, I'm a 2020 marketing challenge champion. Believe everything I say. It's like, all right, yeah, look, I know you don't know who I am. You don't care who I am. You got a business problem that wants to get solved. Like,
Yeah,
and there's people who get that, and that's their mentality and everything that they do. Like, I want to take someone who's a naysayer. I want to take someone who's a doubter of what I am. And I'm going to, by the time you're done with me, sir, I'm going to flip that on its head. If you build a team around that, you're kicking butt.
yeah, yeah. Well, like it's really it doesn't serve anyone to not do that, right? To let someone walk off a cliff. One time we were doing a part-out implementation, and another company was doing the Salesforce implementation, and how it goes when they're not chatting. Like, we heard that they were going to do something. It was like freaky. It was like they were going to create a brand new like lead object, or like a custom, like a custom object for a contact, or something that was just going to completely whack
Which you're like,
the
why would
integration.
someone who's a Salesforce implementation partner even recommend that? But
Right.
sure.
Well, right. But it was like a yes thing, because technically the
Uh-huh.
client had asked, hey, could we do something? Can we do this? Like, here's what I think we should do. Instead of being like, oh, what are you trying to do? And then molding whatever needs to mold to it. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll build it for you, charge you for the 1,000 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
So we had to have a call. I'm like, don't do this. You're going to block your integration for all of time. Like, it's not worth it. What are you trying to do? So you need to have, I feel like that's like what family does, right? Family advises, like, okay, you might be pissed at me, but I'm going to be telling you, you shouldn't do this, or you should do this, or, maybe you'll get over it. Maybe you won't, but I would feel bad if I didn't tell you not to marry that girl. She's crazy, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. That's consulting, right?
Right.
That's the difference between consulting and being an admin, right? And there
Right.
is a huge difference. There's a lot of very talented admins that understand ways to get things done. As a consultant, your job is to have gone through that path, right? And say, well, here's 5 reasons why you don't want to do that
Right.
that I can just think of right now.
Yeah. We can rattle them off.
You can rattle them off.
Makes sense. You've mentioned lists a couple times, and I recently saw a post from someone saying like, "Hey, tell me about Zoom Info, and I really want to get a list of people, or I want to borrow my friend's Zoom Info account, and what's the best way to send a cold email with a list like this?" And I was just like, "Oh, it was just one of those posts where it's like they're asking the wrong question, but the question indicates that they need some counseling here. They're going down the wrong path here." What's your take on the dirty little secret of marketing, on the lists, on the
Yeah.
Zoom infos of the world?
Yeah. I mean, marketing is about lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for a lot of businesses, a lot of startups, a lot of small businesses, there's the white hat approach that we always advise for initially, right? And that is, here's how you build your list. You build out like amazing content, like what you're doing, right? You are the example of white hat marketing. You want to know about Pardot? We have regular updates that we're sharing with
Sure.
you for free. And then, yeah, if this is interesting to us, you can contact us and we can talk about projects. For a lot of small businesses, that's a challenge because,
Yeah.
look, we're getting started. If we don't get sales in right away, then or get leads into the funnel right away, then we're done in 2 months. And so it is a challenge. And what Zoom Info's given you the ability to do is access all this information. And what they say is this is all information. So Zoom Info, and I would say I am a fan of Zoom Info because the way that they get their information and scrub their information is done the right way.
Okay.
There's other places, there's other people who provide lists like affiliate marketer lists that are
In
not
Bulgaria, right? Of course.
I'm sure where it's kind of a similar approach. Now, where I would say we're talking about email deliverability, when I talk to people who have this need and they're saying, you know what, we need to just, we know that we're targeting these kind of companies. We need to find these people in these kind of companies, want
Yeah.
to reach out to these people in these kind of companies, but we're using Pardot. My first thing is saying, well, don't do that using Pardot. And then they get upset because they're like, well, we bought Pardot. We're spending
Spending money on it.
$25,000 a year on this thing and da-da-da. Yes. Now you want that $25,000 a year to keep working for you, right, Casey? And you kind of do the card
I
salesman, you
do.
shake your head, right? You don't want to send emails out to people on a list that's going to get your IP address blacklisted, and then you're going to go to spam boxes, right, Casey? And Casey's going to
Yeah,
shake
then
his
I'll
head.
lose my
Yes, yes.
subscription even though
You're
I
going to lose
paid
your
for it.
subscription. Yep. You don't want to get booted from the platform and pay for this thing that you can't send emails from, right, Casey? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
answer to the Zoom info is, if that is part of a strategy and they can't get around it, there are other tools out there that allow you to. There's rules around these other tools. One that I've worked with actually quite a bit, again, and recommended to customers who are doing this. And this is not a promotion. This is not a plug by any means, but there's a tool called Clickback. The reason I'll talk about this tool called Clickback is because they do some important things that's relevant when we're talking about email deliverability. One is, part of their service when you sign up for that thing, they're going to set you up with a domain that's like your domain. So rather than it coming from CheshireImpact.com, if you're going to Zoom Info and you're looking up everybody who's a Pardot admin in the world or something like that, and you want to spam these people, don't do it from CheshireImpact.com, because that's going to damage your domain reputation, which is going to damage deliverability. So what these guys do that's pretty slick is, it might be Cheshire.training, or some kind of alternate domain of that, totally separate from your brand, totally separate from what you're doing, still a representative of your brand, and then you can send that to the cold ones, and you keep that out of Pardot. Now, that becomes step one, and then for people who are responsive to that, then you can say, all right, hey, thanks for responding. My name is Casey. I'm the owner here. And then that's when your Pardot kicks in. So you're doing that initial scrubbing somewhere out of your expensive tools. Then these other tools cost a lot less. They're more limited. But Pardot, especially when you're using Pardot in Salesforce, it really needs to be treated as that golden org, right? This is the golden stuff. Keep the clean stuff in here, because of the way that it engages with not only your top of funnel, but when you're talking about middle of funnel, you're talking about re-engaging old customers. You want it to work. You want that piece to work, and you want to protect it. So when we're talking about Zoom Info, what I teach is you use another tool for, if you think, all right, this is maybe a little bit dicey, test it on a totally different platform. Interesting thing, like other platforms like MailChimp. So I have found, like, again, from being in this space, I've realized Pardot's actually one of the more forgiving platforms. They have somebody who will reach out to you and say, hey, it looks like we have a complaint. It looks like there's an issue. Can we talk through what's going on? We're like,
shout out to Skylar.
There's a few people, they're just great people on that team. And, other platforms that are smaller, maybe half the cost, half the price, you just log in one day like, oh, no, you got a complaint. You're booted. Sorry.
Wow. Which one's that? Which one boots you?
So there's a few of them. I know MailChimp has a very low tolerance of that. So
they used to not, right? But I think everyone was like, oh, I'll just use a free MailChimp burner account and then I'll be fine.
And a lot of people are doing that. So MailChimp is just like, I've noticed. They crack down on that. I want to say like a campaign monitor. There's all these other tools that I think what it is like the tools that are more month to month, more like the cost-effective tools, or and the freemium tools where they have that risk, where it's people who are doing exactly what I'm talking about doing, where it's like, I got this list, I don't know how good it is, but I'm going to run it through this MailChimp thing because it's free. Those ones, they've gotten pretty strict, and they block people out pretty quickly.
Got it.
From what I've seen.
And they have to, right? Because to your point, they're dealing with the sort of turn and burn, and they got to protect themselves. Otherwise, all of their deliverability will suffer. I remember once had a client come over to Pardot from Acton, and this was several years ago. So hopefully Acton has changed their ways. But he got a 50% deliverability on an email he sent to people that he knows and who know him by name. And and I'd never seen that, right? Like I was almost like in my little perfect little world over in Pardot, getting some good delivery. Oh, was it 98? Was it 99? Was it 96? And then 50. I'm like, what is that? But he knew what was happening. They were blasting emails. They just weren't following the rules of the road. Too many emails are going out via Google, not spacing them out. And it looked like spam to a lot of filters. So they were getting filtered. A lot of government addresses too, to be fair, but like, it just was hard. So yeah, these things are out there.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, shared IP addresses too, right? Where you could be doing everything right at your domain level, but you're sharing an IP with someone who's signed up for free for this platform because they're like, you know what, I got this list that I purchased from, Facebook info cipher.darkweb.net, or whatever it is.
50freetwitterfollowers.com.
50 free to, yeah, exactly. And, they're like, oh, what's a free tool that I can pump this through to see if I can get some quick wins out of this?
Right.
One, a lesson, don't do that in Pardot. Really treat Pardot as your golden org because it's the expensive tool and it's there to be connected to your CRM data. You want to preserve it. You want to protect it. Same in just your main sending domain as well. So another great email deliverability tip, if possible, have a marketing domain. You look at bigger companies like I know you like using the analogy of Amazon. Amazon has multiple domains that they send emails for depending on what list you're on and what you're subscribing to. People don't have an issue with that, right? If I know that I'm getting something from Cheshire Impact, but it's like CheshireTraining.com, and I see the branding and it makes sense. I'm, okay, great. And you could send that from a different service to, on a systems level internally, you're doing whatever you need to do to make sure that, all these messages are coming out from the right place. But yeah, it's not just, all right, let's send everything from we got this Pardot tool. Let's just send everything from this Pardot tool.
Right.
Huge deliverability tip right there, right? Like hot tip alert. I don't know if you have an After Effects.
Hot tip.
Go in like a little like horn or something. But yeah, you use different services and it goes a long way because it's diversifying, right? Like diversifying your emails.
There it is, man. Boom. Mic drop. He just takes off his headphones. He walks out the door. He's like, I'm out. I'm done. I delivered it. What more can I teach you? You cannot
see you lunchtime.
You must leave the cave. You must fly away and fight the Darth Vaders of the world. Yeah. I love the idea of using it as the protected place, the place where you want to get emails to people who want to get your emails, right? So if you want, and for the record, sending spam or the spin of unsolicited emails is quite inefficient. There's a reason for that, and people are trained to that. So it's not going to be your savior. There's a lot of other great lead sources and ways you can do it. If you want to do it, like knock yourself out. I have a similar approach where it's like, try it. Marketing's try something, see what happens. As long as you're not hurting anyone, try it out. But you're going to find that it's just not. It can leave a bad impression too. But if anything, do it the safe way.
Do it the safe way, especially with Pardot. Now, I've taken that stance for most of my career, and the thing that's crazy is there are more anomalies, but there are people out there that spam and it works. It's like this email marketing. Yep, I spam people with this. This is a special offer for something like this. Now, I mean, these are people that are sending to large lists of people, and so it's like we're sending this message to 1 million people we've bought, and if we get 1,000 people to respond, that's a win, right? Which is a very low conversion rate. And if that's the case, as a consultant, you're kind of this outside resource. You can say, here's the reasons why you shouldn't do that. But if you are going to do that, what I will say is don't do that with your Pardot tool, right? Like find another tool to do that. And then when those 1,000 good ones come back in, add those 1,000 good ones to Pardot. So if that's part of your strategy, we can, and it's working, well, good job. I wouldn't do it for my brand, but if that's part of the thing, don't do all of that from Pardot. Take the good stuff, and then now you've got them in treat that as your marketing funnel, right? Think of that as like your unsolicited email lists.
For sure, man. I think the whole it's working. I've heard that too. I think it's relative, right? Because I had one company who was doing this sort of cold calling version of that where they have college college students, college students dial for dollars
Yeah.
to all these professors. Like, I guess that's the revenge of the student. And they're like, oh, it's working and we're growing. But it was like they were growing 1% year over year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what business you're in, but like you're not Coca-Cola. You're not gaining market share here. You're not even staying up with inflation. Like, that's not growing. And they were able to fix it, not doing that stuff. But I think sometimes people are like, well, it works if we send 1 billion emails out, we get 10 customers out of it.
Yeah.
So it's all relative.
And they're not tracking, because it's tough to track. Like, is that doing any damage to your brand?
Yeah.
For the 1,000 people that you're getting like 999 million people, or 99,000 whatever people who are like, oh man, these guys are spammers. Gosh, I would never work with them, right? So it's like, hey, we got 1,000 wins, but how much negative is coming through on that because of those practices?
Totally. Same thing applies to just even your own list on Pardot. You've got 1,000 people, 10 are ready to buy, maybe abusing all of them. Great, we got 10 to buy, and now the other ones hate us, and they've all unsubscribed. Like that worked for this month. What are you gonna do next month? Now you have no one left on your list because they've all unsubscribed.
Yep.
It's like thinking about the long-term picture. Do you remember when you first started using Pardot, when you first saw it, or marketing automation back in the day?
Yeah. I remember I was, I live up here in Seattle. And I was working at Microsoft through a vendor for a long time, and we used Pardot to connect to Dynamics CRM. That was my introduction to Pardot.
Wow.
Back in the day, before it was a Salesforce thing, like, was it Sugar, Pardot, Dynamic, and there might have been one other one. I think surprisingly NetSuite. Yeah, surprisingly it wasn't Zoho, and I remember NetSuite. So yeah, that was my first, a long time ago.
How much easier now that it's on the same platform, like Salesforce to Pardot? I don't have to worry about the integration. It just angels sing.
Yeah, integration is nice. That's been a very interesting thing to see change, where now it's just, it only plugs to Salesforce. There's no changing that configuration.
Right.
You switch that thing to on, and more of the implementation work is around like setting up and training people on, this is what this connected campaigns is. Here's this snippets thing, like, and all this. What's great about it for our space, and you're in the same space, is now there's all these new features that you're teaching on, and it's not so much about, we're going to go in and connect these dots for you anymore, because the dots are already connected for you. So, all right, let's go in and let's talk about how these dots connect, and let's talk about how you want your business to work, and all of these different levers that you have, all these additional ways that you can leverage Pardot inside of Salesforce. I think it's cool. You're solving the same problems at the end of the day. There's different just external factors, like how many people are on it, how many people are now using Pardot because it's part of Salesforce, how many people are doing email marketing in general. That makes us think about email marketing a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, at principle, it's the same ideas and the same goals that we're looking to accomplish, just different technology of getting there.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, right? Your same destination, same strategies apply. You just have different ways of doing it. Maybe you can spend less on the tech now because some of those things have been smoothed out for you. Got a really, maybe a tough question for you, because you know so much about Pardot, marketing automation. If you were to have one tip for maximizing marketing automation, you only get one, but if you had to pick one, what would it be? What would you tell people to do or think or see?
One tip for marketing automation. If it's one word, it would be clean data.
Wow, you go not even just one tip, but one word, just going right to data. That's awesome.
Yep, data.
Hey, good
data
call.
Is everything. Data is everything, because without that, then you're in the same issue as a spammer, right?
That's
if you
true.
don't have that information, you're just a spammer, right? You're like, hey, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're about. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you need. But here,
click here.
click here. Click here. We got beaver t-shirts. Hey, you want a beaver t-shirt? Hey, you want a beaver t-shirt?
Right. It's so true, right? I don't know anything about you, but yet you might as well be trying to pick someone up at a bar. Like,
Mhm.
come on. And we don't got time for that. We're busy
Yep.
here doing our jobs here. It's all about being authentic and all that good stuff. I like that. It's a good tip, man. Pointing it back to data, because you could say anything, but really it takes it back to the source, the roots of it all, which is that side.
It has to be. It has to be. And yeah, I had to pause and think about that for a little bit because
Yeah, that's
there's a
cool.
lot that goes into it. But I think that it really is number one.
I think we're two guys that are okay with the blank space, the quiet space, right? You know,
Thank you. Thank you.
we'll just stare at each other's eyes and we'll just wait for the response to happen. It's all good. No, it's good. It's good to consider that, but that's the mark of someone who's really thinking about the a truest answer as opposed to just being like, "Hey, here's my prepared answer. Here's you're like, oh, make sure you something something." It's like everyone just rolls their eyes, But no, when you
Yeah.
say data, it's like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That is a
Data.
good point.
Yeah. Yeah. We could say, well, make sure you're authentic in your brand message and there's an alignment with sales and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. Like,
Brand,
yeah.
Casey.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of that stuff is important, but I think if
Right.
to pause and think back, to go back to the number one thing, the data's got to be good, right?
Gotta be. Yeah.
And if I'm going to extend on that now that we're long tail it, was be like on your lists. I love Never Bounce, Bright Verify. You got one of my old buddies on your team who's came from Bright Verify,
Yeah.
and awesome guy, love him. And Bright Verify, Never Bounce, a great tool for like making sure what the data is updated, that you're not sitting to some
Right.
bounce list or some catch-all thing. It's so important for deliverability, right? Making sure that you're sending the valid stuff before you pop that in your hopper. So
Right.
I double down on data.
100%. Now, another question for you then is: you're so plugged into everything. Where do you see things going in the future? What is there anything coming around the bend? What should we keep our eyes open for? What should we on the lookout for? Maybe watch out for.
Yeah, I know. I've listened to one of your podcasts in the past, and you had this great conversation about AI, like
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. So I think that's it's here. It's not awesome yet, and I think a lot of the AI
Yeah.
tools, and I've done some stuff with machine learning programs, and like I did a thing with like some photo detection, where I was trying to teach this thing to like be able to detect photos and like do a look-alike, or oh, this shirt is this kind of Nordstrom shirt. And it was very tough. It was like everything came back as like thinking it was Morgan Freeman for some reason. Like I loaded a picture and this thing is like, it's 97% chance that's Morgan Freeman. It's just like, I don't know why. But like the idea of we have the ability, the capacity as humans to create these super powerful machines that can process all this information so quickly and in real time and index through a bunch of data. We've got these like ability to like elastic search through millions of records so quickly. That's super exciting because it's going to be like you want an answer on something right now. Go back to like Zoom Info, huge database of just all this information that's available. Like you could just search on anything and get a result. Like it's what Google is. I think that's a big part of the future. So being able to index and query that stuff, and I think the opportunity for the innovators in the room, the innovators out there that are looking at like, okay, what do we build? What's the next step? Connectivity, I think, is also equally important. So you've got the power to have these very powerful machines that can analyze data, analyze information and stuff like that. But what comes up in every conversation, if we bring that down to like what's useful for business and what's useful for business owners, it's knowing that, okay, I've got this technology stack, but we need to add on this other piece, or we need to, quickly switch from this piece to that piece. And the biggest challenge, and in the implementation space, you come across this a lot, is like, oh, these guys are using some new web building tool that like is some, it's not WordPress, it's not this big thing, but it does all this awesome
Something.
stuff, but
Yeah.
now it's not going to connect to this, and it's going to be some custom build out and integration. And that's where there's a lot of big bucks that get spent. And if I'm going to sit here on the phone call today and say, what's going to be the next thing that puts you or I out of jobs, it's going to be the ability to use this machine learning to go and find all of these conditions and then automatically connect to other stuff. So connectivity and just like the intelligence of these machines, I think is the next step of where things are going. And the next big opportunity are the people who are able to identify that and capitalize on it. One great example of something that already exists right now, and I know there's other tools along this, but like you look at Zapier, you look at the success that they've had there. I mean, how many integrations or thing like platforms are like, oh yeah, we can integrate with anything. We use this Zapier piece.
Right, right.
And
Thanks to
great for
that one. Yeah.
Zapier, right? Great for Zapier. Zapier's
Yeah.
got a huge network of people that are developers that are building out their API and say, yeah, we just have to build an API and let it talk to this Zapier thing. And then, yeah, we can say that we connect with anything. That's so big, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I guess from a platform play, if you could remove that piece in your infrastructure in a way that you're building out and developing your own tools to say we can connect anything and you don't need to have a middleware type tool, that's huge. But that's there right now, and it's a huge space because as a business owner, to be able to plug something in relatively quickly, relatively low cost, determine, okay, is this adding the value that I need it to add? If not, okay, we need to find something different, be able to plug that in, especially for small and large businesses. That's so critical and so important. And then as you're building out a stack and you're building out complex processes, and let's say go back to the marketing example or the
Yeah.
operations example, if you got these different systems that are sending emails out separately, another conversation that comes up quite a lot is like the orchestration of we got Outreach and we've got Pardot and we've got Google and we've got this like the ServiceNow thing that needs to send out these updates from our ticket system. How do we
Mm-hmm.
coordinate and orchestrate all this stuff? That connectivity between systems. So if Pardot is able to, right now we do it all through Salesforce, but yeah, if Pardot's able to know, okay, ServiceNow just sent this email and we have visibility to that, that's a huge win for
Yeah.
like everyone, like everyone. So connectivity, I would say, is like the next frontier, if you will.
It's a great point. And one of the powers of Salesforce and why we tell people to write their API to it, or if you feel like you need to do that, do it to Salesforce, because then you get all the tools that they have as a part of that. And if you don't, you're right, you need something like Zapier. But what's funny about Zapier is it used to be that kind of like third party connector that was like this sort of like sketchy, back alley
Band-Aid. Yep.
connector, and
Yep.
you're like, well, if you can't get it naturally, try with the Zapier thing. Like, is it good? But you're right, they stuck with it, and now to have companies using it as a value prop to say, no, we do connect with everything. That's
The
huge.
thing is, before Zapier, what you do is you say, okay, let me go spin up this virtual machine somewhere, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to write some Python code, get request, and it takes you like a couple of months just to build out the connectors, and then you got to go in and refresh these tokens and stuff all the time.
Sure.
And now with Zapier, you log into a website, you click a button. All right, here's all the APIs that this allows you to do. Yeah, I want to do that, and then this is the action. And you're done, right?
Yeah.
Like Zapier was on to something with that. So the future is going to be that, right? So if you're building a new app, if you're building the next marketing automation engine or whatever the next tool is going to be, you have to be able to connect to stuff. It's
Right.
absolute need. Yeah, and I mean, and that's not super new.
No,
like
yeah.
I think, and I'll just speak in candor, I think it's pretty well known at this point. I when I started working in the Microsoft space was right around 2007, 2008, and it was still that they had the Windows phones. Remember Windows phones? And they went and bought Nokia, and they're like, Windows phones are going to be the thing. And the culture there at the time was, you know what? We are this huge brand, and everyone's going to connect to us, right? Like we're not gonna play nice with other brands. And it's like, yeah, we have an option to work on Microsoft stuff outside of Microsoft, but the mantra there was all about it's this space, everything work with us. And that opened up the door for companies like Google to come in with this thing called Google Sheets and Google Docs, that at the beginning when that stuff came out, you're like, oh well, it's not Word, it's not Excel,
Not Word.
But gosh, this thing works with everything else. Like I can like send this to over here and send this to over here and send this over here. And now Microsoft has made a change. They've realized that like, okay, we live in this world of we need to be able to connect to these other things.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to win this market share back. Because if you're on a development team and you're like, okay, we're building mobile apps. If you're building mobile apps, right, the first thing that we need to build our mobile app for is our iPhone, just like in the development space. And this is what Salesforce has done a great job of. If you're building a SaaS tool, the first thing that you want to make sure that you can do is connect with Salesforce, because if you can connect to Salesforce, that opens up a lot of customers for you.
Right.
in the mobile app development space. The second one was, all right, Android. So you have a lot of developers, you're spending a lot of time developing for Apple. And then you have a totally, well, maybe similar but different code set that's getting built out for Android. And you
Right.
got this Windows phone. At the time, there's all these incentives like, hey, Windows is over here, like, hey, build for our app, build a Candy Crush for Windows. And I think Candy Crush did come out for Windows, or build Clash of Clans for Windows.
Yeah.
But these developers are like, you know what? The money is where all these people are using iPhone stuff here. And if it's this world of connectivity, it's this world of playing nice with others, being collaborative, being that system that, oh yeah, you can send your information out to here, we can collect information from there.
Right.
Microsoft is there now.
Right.
But if they would have adopted that earlier, I think would we be using G Suite, would it be as popular as it is today if Office 365 was just doing that from the beginning and it was right there? Probably a very different landscape.
Not at all, man. It's so true. And it also reminds me of like the live collaboration on Google Docs is like otherworldly, because you don't have like, oh, this is Doc 7.4
version 1. Yeah.
Yet somebody else sent a 7.4 version. We all sent the same version, but you didn't change the name of the doc, and then you end up having like 9 saved files.
Which one's the right one? Yeah.
Yeah. And all this did was say, okay, let's change it together. And if you need to go back, you can, but you probably won't. And move forward, man. You're right. It's like staying on top of those changes and embracing them. That's just a huge part of it.
And being able to share your Google Doc with someone who doesn't have a gmail.com, right? They can be on another platform. You can still share your information with them, and they can go into a web browser, right? They don't have to have a licensed piece of software to be able to access this stuff. It's like, free. Why would you give it away for free when people are going to pay for it? Look what they've done. You know what I mean? And people still pay for it. People still buy the G Suite to upgrade the storage. And so, 100%. I mean, it starts with connectivity, right? If you can connect and play nicely with other people and plug into other things, that's the most important.
Totally becomes part of your thing. I mean, I even bought a terabyte to store all these crazy podcasts because they started getting so much space. But it's so easy. Boop, boop. Thanks, Google. You're already part of my thing. They just own that space. And so it makes you think that if you're ever going to do anything with, I'm sure Word has it now, but I don't even care. But they have the thing maybe where do they have a collaboration? Can I do that?
Yeah. So all that is now on. It's like a Office Online. It's part of your Office 365 stack. You can do all of that stuff now. Like you were saying, there was a need that came up, and you probably were going through this in somewhere like 2010 or something, 10 years ago. You're like, I can't do this here, but I can do this here. That situation was so many people at the time, right? And like they kind of missed the boat. They kind of missed the boat. Yeah,
they did. Well, I'm always a little skeptical of anything that Microsoft buys. Like usually they kill it, like Skype, RIP Skype. It was great. We all used it. And then
so how do you feel about LinkedIn?
Fingers crossed, knock on wood. Knock on everything here. I like LinkedIn. Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
So who are you, man? We've been learning a lot. We've been swapping a lot of strategies, but like, who are you? Take us back to like little Brandon days.
I'm just a guy.
Like growing up, did you know you're gonna be marketing kahuna, big boss? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah. So who am I? So I grew up in Seattle. The area code 98178, which at the time was, I think, like one of the most diverse area codes in the U.S. or some kind of weird stat like cool. that. I say because you asked this in the pre-interview. I grew up. I call it hood adjacent. So the way that most hoods are set up is you got your bad blocks and you got your blocks that aren't so bad. I was on one of the blocks that wasn't so bad, but I was still in the area.
You could like walk, kind of like being in San Fran. You could like walk the wrong way.
Exactly like San Francisco.
Yeah.
Exactly like San Francisco, where it's like you go three blocks down the wrong way, and you're like, oh, this is bad. And my mom is an educator. Dad was a telecommunications consultant, worked for the phone company for a long time. And because the public schools were pretty poor. My parents pulled me out of public school in like 3rd grade and put me in private school in 4th grade.
Okay.
And with private school, you're dealing with different kids. It's like everyone has nice shoes, Jordans and stuff like that. My parents are like, we're not getting any of that stuff for you. So what my mom did, I played soccer. We talked a little about soccer.
Yeah.
One of the first jobs I ever got, she's like, oh, look, they need referees for soccer. So she signed me up to take this referee class, and I was like 10 years old refereeing like 4-year-old. I might have been older than 10. I don't. I was young. I was young, and I was a referee, and that was like my first job. And I I've always had to, like, if I wanted to get a thing, my parents were like, "Hey, get a job and work for the thing." So I've done
Wow.
all kinds of odd jobs, all kinds of sales jobs, like you name it. I graduated from college in 2007, which was like a huge like
Yeah.
recession. There was like no jobs coming out of college.
Sure.
So I got a degree in broadcasting, which was like I was very passionate about. I wanted to get a job in broadcasting, and then interviewing, and like every radio station was like, well, yeah, here's what we want to do. We want to dress you up as like a baby and have you like run around the Space Needle and like, you know, ask people what their favorite candy was, and we're going to pay you minimum wage to do it, or you're going to be volunteering to do that. I'm like, no. So I got a job selling cars in Redmond. Jaguar Land Rover of Bellevue was my first grown-up job.
Nice. You went right up there, huh? You didn't start at a used car dealer. You went right for big
Went right
brands.
for it. Went right for it. And you know, so in there it was in Bellevue, right next to where Microsoft was. So you're
Yeah.
selling Range Rovers, and then got a job to work for a domain registrar called Enom. Sold a vehicle to one of the executive presidents there, and he said, "Brandon, I like the way you talk. You want to sell? Is your mission to sell cars your whole life, or do you want to do something different?" So I was like, "Hey, man,
Sounds like a military recruiter.
yeah. So I worked there at a domain registrar and reseller sales. So we're working with hosting companies that are,
Yeah.
you know, like incorporating SSL certificates. They would resell those through this company Enom, and then from there, did my own thing. Started my own hosting company and web development company back
Yeah.
then. Started doing vendor work for Microsoft. That rolled up eventually into getting involved inside of Pardot,
Right.
and that's how I got here. So a lot of just learning the technical stuff, like just the sleepless nights of teaching myself how to code and teaching
Right.
myself different coding languages and all of that good stuff. Background really has been sales, and even with the hosting company. So the interesting hosting company, that's a company called Local Direct, and it was hosting company and payment processing. So I had a relationship as what's called an ISO independent sales operative of a credit card processing,
Sure.
literally knocking door to door. Casey, I was doing the door to door thing, going to be like, hey, let me see your last month payment processing statements. If I can beat it, switch over to me, and I'll also build you a free website. That was my angle.
Nice.
And it worked, but it was tough, right? Tough
Yeah.
work, and
It's a grind, man. Door to door.
door to door grind, and like as soon as you stop, you're not paying your bills. So it was good to move on, and that opened up the door for a lot of the Microsoft / technical selling jobs, because
Yeah.
you knew a lot about domains, know a lot about websites, know a lot about like payment processing stuff, and then rolled that into a bunch of Salesforce knowledge really over the last 7 years. And now I run a small boutique Pardot shop in the wake of the large Cheshire Impact.
Ah.
We've got a small little niche segment that we work with, a few great
Sure.
clients, and that's what we're doing.
Right on, man. You got the Space Needle. You got Mount Rainier. Got all those
Got the
things
Space
keeping you
Needle,
company.
Mount Rainier.
You
That's
never
right.
had to dance around it and give out candy.
Never did that. That you know, just it yeah.
Yeah. No.
If there's
Radio
better
is a
opportunity.
trick. Nobody.
It's tough, you know, and so I went to college, Minot State University, North Dakota. I went out there on a football
Wow. North
scholarship.
Dakota.
North
You
Dakota,
said
yep, the
football scholarship?
football scholarship. They when they recruited me, they said, "Hey,
Oh
why
shit.
not Minot?" Right?
Ah.
Long
Right.
story, total separate conversation. Great school, great people out there. That's where I got my broadcasting degree. Got offered a job. I realized they say, "Why not Minot?" I didn't know the answer after going to school there. I had a reason, and freezing's the reason. Why not Minot?
Ah.
Freezing's the reason, because it gets cold in the wintertime, like -30s. Like there would be days where they'd be like alerts, don't go outside for longer than 10 minutes or you will die. Right. So it's just
Oh
like,
jeez.
yeah, like very, you know, yeah. So, didn't want to like continue living there after school. Loved it. Loved the people there. I've gone back a few times for like alumni type things.
Right.
Um, but moved back to Seattle, looked for like, okay, what's the broadcasting job? Very difficult space to get into.
Oh,
And
totally.
you're just, you know, you got to start in small markets and bounce around and move a lot. And, but very happy with with the path that I've chosen.
For sure, man. Radio, I even did some radio stuff early on. And it's kind of like vaporware because you don't have any tracking. You don't know anything. So selling advertisements for that, ugh,
Mhm.
you just have to like make up stuff. So, but I think it's almost like 20 years later or 30, 40 years later, now we have podcasts and things like that where suddenly all those people
Trackable.
who we ignored actually know what they're talking about with sound and with these kind of things in radio shows and Gimlet Media and all these different kind of audio shows that now are really popular.
Mhm. Well, and you can track the ROI better, right? Because you can
Yeah,
see who's listening. You've got the connectivity, you've got the insights. It's like, oh yeah, we're using this podcasting tool. We can see who's listening to the podcast. We can see how many clicks we've got. The last podcast we've had 1 million views. So do you want to advertise, right?
yeah. Advertise and connect, and it's almost like it's breathed life back into that whole category. So I'm surprised you don't have a podcast yet. Are you going to do that at some point?
I would like to. It's not. I'm in the services grind.
I hear
I
you.
am where you were at probably 6-7 years ago. Where it's just like there's just so much work that has to get done and
Yeah,
so much deliverable and making sure that the ship is floating, that I can't step away from the ship. And the few times where I've tried to step away from the ship and like, okay, let's focus on this other thing, I instantly get pulled right back into the ship to find out where the holes are. So
sure.
that's the world that I'm living in right now. A
I
lot
hear
of
you, man.
project support, a lot of getting things done, a lot of deliverability, making sure people are happy with things. Um, I've got a little YouTube channel
Oh,
where we
nice.
just posting some tips and tricks, and we do very similar tips and trick type stuff. You know me, I'm pretty marketing, sales, technical type guy
Yeah.
is the world that I live in. So a lot of the stuff is around that. There'll be a podcast coming soon. I'm sure of it. And when that happens, I'd love to have you.
Yeah. Until then, man, we'll just keep having you come back on this one. And
I'd love
we'll
to.
just
I'd love to.
ham
I
it up
love
all the
doing this
time.
stuff.
Yeah, on the regular.
Talking
Um,
about rugby and soccer and t-ball.
that's it, man. And you know what? We've already talked marketing. So what's left? Let's get to the good stuff, right? So, a question for you around this whole career, this whole path. You've put in the work and all these different places you've been at. Hypothetical, if you can go back in time and advise yourself, you get to go meet yourself right after you graduated, got that degree, you're in Minot, and you're thinking, why not? You know why not? And so you're like, what am I going to do now with my career? You got goofy radio stations offering you jobs and stuff. If you can go back and talk to yourself then, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
Um, this is going to be funny. Is buy land as soon as you can. It has nothing to do with marketing. If I could go
That's
back and talk to
funny.
young Brandon, it'd be like, you know what? Buy that condo, buy that plot of land, buy that thing, because maybe that's not the answer you're looking for, but that's the most honest answer I can
That's the
provide.
answer, man.
buy things that are positive grossing assets, right? Like invest in things that are going to give you a return versus like buying that car that makes you look super cool when you're going out. If any advice would be, you don't have to look cool. You don't have to have like the nicest clothes or the nicest car. Going to the clubs and doing all that fun stuff. It's fun to be social and it's fun to have all that. And I think I had to go through that experience. But
Sure.
if I could talk to my young self again, it would be every effort that you're putting in, invest in something that's going to help you out in the future.
Oh, I love that. Super, super wise words there. And can you imagine how you would react to like
I would ignore myself. My mom taught me that.
Papa
I
Brandon
ignored her.
coming in, be like,
Yeah.
listen up.
Yeah, I would have ignored him. I would have been the same thing. It'd have been like the same story over and over again.
Right. Maybe that's what's happening right now. Maybe this is just all a loop in your story. And I'm just a supporting subroutine, you know? Not even here.
Maybe.
So now we get weird. We're not even smoking anything. What's going on? How would you have a long
This is one
podcast?
of those Joe Rogan type shows.
I know, right? One day, my friend, one day. I don't think we can do that in New Hampshire yet, so we'd have to come
Not
to your
yet.
place. Or we can both meet up in Oregon.
You could do that here. You smell it everywhere you go up here. It's like oxygen, I guess.
Oh, okay. You heard it here.
You
Brandon
heard it here.
Walton, you smell the oxygen.
Anybody who's been up here and they've gone to like the Pike Place Market in the last few years knows exactly. The Pike Place Market used to smell like flowers and fish and stuff like that. Now it just smells like weed.
Wouldn't that be funny though if you could be like, give me some lemon over here. Let me package gets thrown your way. So they used to sell fish. Now they sell other things.
Yeah, it's true. It's happened. It's already there.
Crazy, man. Crazy. This is wild. This is fun. I feel like we could just hang out and talk forever. How's the family going? I know you're growing. I keep seeing them on Instagram. The kids. Yeah. What's it like being dad? The best papa ever.
I love it. I love it. I think it was really it was having kids that prompted that grow up in me, right? That go from like, hey, as long as I have a cool car and that's all that matters. Kids just change so much, they really are my drive and my motivation.
It's amazing how things shift, and it's almost like you realize another layer of existence or another layer of importance. It puts it in perspective. You're like, oh yeah, I really like winning a soccer game, and you're like, that is the best feeling in the world. And you're like, or the next experience you have is when your kid like runs at you because you just came home from a trip, or you came home from being in the basement doing work, and they're like, dad or papa, right? And you're like, oh, okay, I see. This all puts it all in perspective,
Yep. Yeah. It's it gives you a reason. It gives you a reason to do anything. I think as a bachelor, you're like, all right, I just have to make this to be happy and be comfortable. And if I make more, that's awesome. That's great. When you've got people who are dependent on you, like it lights a fire. At least
for
it did
sure.
for me. Yeah,
for sure it does. Hey, I know we're running out of time here. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, cypresslearning.com is the website. That would be or LinkedIn, Brandon Walton, Cypress Learning, LinkedIn, if you want to reach me directly. Our website is cypresslearning.com. Nice. Check us out, see what we're about. We do add some help videos on there, just some high level Salesforce help videos. We'll feature like 2 to 3 videos at a time. Nice. Or just DM me on LinkedIn.
Nice. In Twitter too.
Cypress Learning. I've stayed away from Twitter. I know that everyone's like, oh, Twitter is where it's at, and I was involved for a long time, but now
it's just a bunch of bots and angry people.
So yeah, it's been a while since I've been on Twitter. So LinkedIn is where I'm at. That's the social media network that you can find me on, and I'll post articles and helpful stuff from there from time to time also. Yeah,
LinkedIn's where it's at. Please, Microsoft, don't ever change it. Please. It'll be a crime if you do that. This is awesome, man. Hey, thanks for coming on here. This has just been fun to shoot the shit, talk soccer, talk about all these different passions, and also learn about marketing and just kind of hash some stuff out.
Absolutely. Yeah, great doing this, Casey. If you want to do this again, let me know. I'll do this again with you. Absolutely, I had a blast.
We'll do, man. We'll probably have to book off some more time, seeing how we love to talk. This is good stuff. Hey, those listening, if you learned something, I know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. Share this with someone, right? Be a thought leader to one person, 12 people, 38, 194, however many connections you have. LinkedIn's a great platform for that. But don't just share it. Put what you learned. Like Brandon's talking about so many things here. The rule of 5 that he has, his ordered list. He's probably going to change it on us, but that's okay.
Unordered list.
Unordered list, right?
UL, not an OL. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely tag Brandon on this, because he will hop in there and collaborate with you on that. But that's what real thought leadership is. It's sharing things you've learned with other people. So go ahead and do that. Again, man, thanks for coming on here. This has been a blast.
Great. Thanks, Casey. Have a good one.
You bet, man. For all those listening, it's been the Hardcore Marketing Show.
All right. Thanks.
Next time.